conspire and come to an end for a moment, to be resumed momentarily. I'm calling to order the May Capital Program Committee meeting. Who is handling members of the public? Mr. O'Donnell. Cameo appearance.
Thank you.
The
Thank
other
you, Chair.
Mr. O'Donnell.
In fact,
the one
yes,
who
there
didn't
are
grow
two
up in the bar
O'Donnells.
business. Yes, I did.
Mr. Chair, we have 6 members registered to speak today. As a reminder to all public speakers, I would request that you adhere to MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we will limit everyone's comments to 2 minutes. Please be aware that there is a clock in the front of the room and a warning light you will see will remind you when you have 30 seconds left to conclude your remarks. Today's first speaker will be Jason Anthony, followed by Christopher Greif.
Okay. So additional reminder to our public speakers. Technically, when you speak at an MTA board meeting, you're supposed to address the agenda that is before the committee or the board on that day. So we don't enforce that very heavily, but we would like people not to use it as a forum strictly for whatever is on their mind, but to try to address the issues that the board is facing at the meeting. Reminder to our friends who are regular participants. Mr. Anthony.
Now, hey Jano, Jamie and the rest. Jason Anthony, the Transit Guru, on the Monday after his 39th birthday. Let's see. Rolling stock. It is good to see more R211As in territory. I see them a lot on the A, C, and the G. Let's see. Oh, it is lovely to see them being tested along the Brighton line, Queens Boulevard line, but I would love to see them on the N, on the B, on the Q lines that often ride them, and especially on the R train, which I often take the R train when I go to work overnight. And I wish that once and for all the R46 tell us goodbye, because the R46 are, let's say, older than me, and the R68 and 68As and the 62s are, let's say, my age. That's 39. So that's all for this month, Jano and Jamie. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you,
For
Mr.
clarification,
Anthony.
I'm pretty sure that Mr. Critchlow are not the 211s headed for the Brighton line next. I think they are.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Christopher Greif, followed by Jack Connors.
And just to make it clear, I'll course grief later. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christopher D. Greif. First, as you know, I'm always going to try to follow the agenda, but I do want to add that next month is Disability Pride Month, ADA 35, our 10th year of Disability Pride Month. And I am very pleased to see the R211s on the agenda, because I'm going to say that I love them for a lot of reasons. And as you know, I was one tester. My fellow colleague, let her rest in peace, the late legendary Edith Prentice. Yes, Deborah Greif and Ann Menino were there. But I'll say this, since they've been running, they run really well, even on the G, even on the C, and the A. And I agree with my fellow colleague. Can't wait to see them on the other lines to show them how they can handle even more passengers on them and more crowdness. And I'm more pleased to see that we are moving on to update our stations, our accessible stations, updating a lot of things to keep the transit moving forward. And I will always say is the accessibility rides with us all. So I want to wish everyone happy 4th of July and happy Disability Pride Month 10-year anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greif. Sorry. Jack Connors, the mic is yours.
Good afternoon. I'm Jack Connors, Research and Communications Associate at the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA. PCAC. New train cars, subways, and buses are all part of this month's updates. Exciting news for riders. The accessibility and operator improvements on the new buses are a welcome addition, good for riders and drivers alike. And I won't lie, it's still a thrill to get on an R211 or an M9. We're looking forward to seeing R211s on the Queens Boulevard line west too. The MDBF is pretty amazing. The latest Metro North Heritage dual mode locomotive was a sight to behold on the day it went into revenue service. And we're glad to see that both railroads should receive their new dual mode engines on time, if not ahead of schedule, pending resolution of some outstanding issues. So much of the work in this capital plan addresses aspects of the system, tracks, ventilators, substations, mechanical components, that have reached the end of their useful life. Riders may not see them every day like new rolling stock, but they're essential to getting them where they need to go safely and reliably. That's why the CPRB's approval of the 25 to 29 capital plan was so critical. It's unfortunate that we lost valuable time starting on the critical state of good repair work, but it's great, funding issues were worked out. But it's great to see the MTA making haste now that Governor Hochul and the legislature successfully fully funded the capital plan. No small feat. Similarly, the ongoing success of congestion pricing is helping pay for accessibility and station improvements, signal upgrades, and new rolling stock. Can we please retire the LARR's M3s and make Metz Willets Point accessible? I should know that one by now. The Regional Plan Association released a terrific report last week that dives into the numbers and affirms what New Yorkers have observed since congestion relief began a few short months ago. Traffic is down and business is up. The numbers don't lie. Congestion pricing works. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving along, we are going remote to Mo Yan Tham.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Moyeen Tom, New York Policy Manager with Jobs to Move America, or JMA. We work to ensure our public money creates family-sustaining jobs. The approval of state funding for the 2025-2029 capital plan and the $11 billion allocated for the investment in new rail cars, JMA requests that the MTA share the timeline and progress on purchasing these new rail cars. More specifically, will the MTA need to restart the process of purchasing the R2CC2 subway rail cars by authorizing the usage of a competitive request for proposal, RFP? Will the public expect the release of the RFP for these new subway rail cars this fall? Same with the proposed commuter rail cars in the capital plan. What is the procurement timeline for these? The MTA contributes to New York's economic growth by attracting manufacturers to New York through its purchases. With the potential to create hundreds of New York manufacturing jobs, labor advocates, impacted unions, and the broader public would benefit from being able to plan for these anticipated jobs. JMA calls on the MTA to share a timeline for the anticipated new rail cars in the 2025-2029 capital plan to ensure the public understands the progress of the new rail car purchases, especially with their potential to create good family-sustaining jobs in the state. Thank you for everyone's time.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Kalia Hazlett. Okay, we'll come back to Ms. Hazlett. Next up is Maddie Bucky's Highland.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matty Bucky's Highland, and I'm also, too, am an advocate for people with developmental disabilities. I do want to talk about the capital plan, which is great to see new rolling stock, and I would like to thank the New York State Legislature for their part in doing this well. But, folks, the capital plan could be at risk if they pass what they call the one big beautiful bill in Washington. That could be putting our jeopardies at risk. Listen, I oppose any increases in fares. I'm a registered Republican, but capital plan is necessary. Look what they did in Virginia, in the DC area. Look how nice it is, even in Florida as well. So I do support the capital plan 100%, and it really will have to do. Even though it costs a little more money, it's worth it at the very end. And I would like to thank Chairman Lieber and also all the members. I would also like to welcome Melva Miller and James O'Donnell to the board. You guys will do great. And as we participate for the next fare and toll increase, look forward to that, speaking to that. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, please have a great day. Stay cool today, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to go one more time to Kalia Hazlitt. Okay. With that, Chair, that concludes the public comment session.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell. Thank you to our speakers. Copies of the May committee meetings have been distributed and are available on the website. Are there at this time any changes or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Mr. Zuckerman. Second, thank you, Mr. Herbst. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The minutes are approved. Mr. Torres Springer, any changes to the work plan?
No changes, Chair.
Okay, please go ahead with your president's report.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. We're reporting on rolling stock at Capital Program Committee today, hence the very high turnout of a lot of different folks from across the MTA. And among them, I do want to introduce to the committee Rachel Lazarin, who's the new Chief of Staff at MTA Construction and Development. Today's her first day, so we won't get her up here. Rachel comes to us with a lot of experience, just recently as Deputy Commissioner responsible for both budget and procurement at the New York City Department of Design and Construction. So she brings a wealth of experience to the complex management of this agency at C&D. So welcome, Rachel. I'll give a brief report before we get to rolling stock. The big news from last week is our fully funded $68.4 billion 5-year capital plan was approved by the Capital Program Review Board. We're grateful to the governor and the leaders of the state legislature, as well as the city leadership, for this approval and the confidence in MTA's ability to deliver better, faster, and cheaper that this reflects. We have not been waiting around idly for this approval. We have been ready to go with much needed state of good repair work and system improvements. We've initiated 60% of the work in this plan, meaning they've been formed into projects and are entering the design phase. The RFP for the next major resignaling project, bringing CBTC to the A and the C line for 46 track miles in Brooklyn and Queens, was released earlier this month. And the Liberty section out to Ozone Park is funded with this 2025 to 2029 plan. That's a great use of economies of scale and geography that allow us to add that on to the Fulton line and get all the way out to Ozone Park. We'll also have CBTC for the Far Rockaway portion of the line within this plan as well to come a little later. We're nearing completion on an option for 131 more coach buses, which is a major investment in our bus system. At Finance Committee, the board voted to advance the significant purchase of 316 M9A cars for both railroads, and that's partially funded by this next capital plan. We'll hear more about that shortly. And we're near the start of procurement on ADA and station improvements work at 2 Long Island Railroad stations, Floral Park and Belrose. Enormous amount of work coming up. That's some of the heavily featured stuff, but of course, as we always say, this is a 90% state of good repair plan. And so there's a ton of infrastructure investment in our system that's getting teed up and coming. We are moving to increase our transparency as we proceed with all this additional work. The MTA is already one of the most transparent government agencies in the world. We announced via blog post at this URL at the top today that we will overhaul our capital reporting dashboard for this plan as well. The new dashboard will make it easier to find and track projects in the more intuitive sense rather than the smaller budget elements that make up projects. It'll vastly improve functionality for users, and it will help our users find and group projects that matter most to them, while of course continuing to report on project schedules and budgets in a transparent manner. So this has been a long time coming, a lot of input from elected officials, community leaders, a lot of folks out there, and we are implementing that for this next capital plan. Last week, we were joined by city and state elected officials in the Bronx to break ground on major accessibility upgrades. and station renovation work at 3 Harlem Line stations for Metro North, Williamsbridge and Woodlawn, which will become newly ADA accessible and see important state of good repair and capacity improvements, particularly at Woodlawn, which is very busy. A widening of the platform will help with capacity. And then it'll also fully renew Botanical Garden, which is already ADA accessible, but will replace both existing elevators and do a lot of state of good repair work at that very busy station. So that's exciting. It's the beginning of nearly $8 billion in improvements to Metro North that we will make in the 25 to 29 plan, including major investments in that Grand Central artery that carries 98% of service into Midtown, more improvements to Harlem Line stations, a lot of which we've pointed out have serious issues at the platforms in particular, and then resiliency investments and capacity improvements in the Hudson Line, which we're proceeding with design and planning for immediately. So lots of exciting activity for Metro North. And then the committee will also see an action today to approve a $249 million contract to protect the Verrazano Narrows Bridge and keep it in good repair for its 220,000 daily vehicle crossings, of which 30,000 are riders of express buses. This is through installation of an innovative main cable dehumidification system. It's a new system for us, but has become a widely accepted method of preventing steel cable corrosion around the world. The team being selected here recently finished a similar system for the Port Authority on the George Washington Bridge, and we're already installing it on the suspension portion of the RFK Bridge. With the 25 to 29 plan, we will be able to install this system on our 2 other suspension bridges as well. So we'll be fully dehumidifying the entire bridge system for the MTA. That's my report. With that, unless there are any questions about any of that, because we're moving into more content. Ms. Lopez.
Thank you. Sorry, just a quick question with respect to the dashboard. Is it just for this current plan or for prior plans as well?
We will be launching it and starting to populate it with projects from this upcoming plan, and then our intention is to go backwards as we can. But our priority is to get it in place for the new plan. Mr. Zuckerman.
Sure, my technical skill will be deeply overwhelmed quickly by your answer, but since I don't, I know what dehumidifiers are because I have a lot of sinus problems, but when it comes to cabling, how many do we get extra years out of the life? How many? Like, it sounds like a big number, $250 million, and I don't know anything, and you just sort of said people do it, so we should do it. So I'd just love a couple more sentences about it before we spend $250 million.
Yeah.
Well, we're here. We're
yeah.
talking about it. You said this is the topic. Maybe it's okay.
There is a
saying read your homework is not very fair, Mr. Chair.
There is a staff summary. If you want more detail, then I'll give you. We do have our head of our Bridges and Tunnels business unit, Romulo DeSantis, who's also chief engineer of B&T here. But essentially, all of those cables, the wires that are bound up inside those cables, they suffer from corrosion over time, and it's humidity that really accelerates the corrosion. So the goal is to get us back to under 40% humidity within that tightly bound cable. And keep it there. And if we do that, we're extending the useful life. There isn't a specific time range for that. I don't know that we have a specific useful, Romulo's shaking his head, we don't have a specific useful life time frame for that cabling system, but we're putting this system in place that will last for decades and maintain that low relative humidity. So essentially, just like that dehumidifier in your bedroom or your basement.
But as I recall,
Romulo.
we had one. Oh, please.
Yeah.
And
Here.
that's the key, to prevent the corrosion. Arrest the corrosion. Corrosion leads to wire breaks, and ultimately, once you have multiple wire breaks, potentially failure of the cable.
But there must be some either cost avoidance or some life extension.
Oh, yeah,
that
big time.
As I recall, we were at 1.50-year lifespan, and at some point we miraculously extended it to 75 years, if I remember correctly. So I'm guessing there's some belief that, is this already included in the 75, or this gets us beyond?
We did a lot of work at the Verrazano. We did the orthotropic deck to reduce some of its weight. So
Right.
that's the main cable. Sees a lot of weight, so we're doing a weight reduction, and now this goal corrosion in the main cable, which ultimately extends the useful life of the entire bridge system for at least another 30 to 50 years.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
But all kidding aside, I think that what Mr. Zuckerman's looking for is something that relates the cost of the investment, which is $249 million, to the cost avoidance of an earlier replacement of the cabling or a sequential need to replace individual wires, right? So let's do the math and circulate it to the board if it's not reflected in the staff summary.
Yep.
Okay.
With that, I'll pass it on to Lourdes Zapata, our Chief Diversity Officer, for her report on our MW and DBE program, which her department runs in close collaboration with C&D to ensure diversity in contracting, which is a great benefit to the program and a great partnership that we have.
Thank you, Jamie. Good afternoon, committee members. It's a pleasure to be here. We are extremely proud of the work the MTA has been able to do in our continued commitment to supporting historically underutilized businesses, of which we include MWBE, DBE, and SDVOB small businesses. I would, just for context, just advise that the MTA leads the state of the 96 state agencies and authorities in hub spend with MWBE firms. We spend 3 times more on MWBE contracting opportunities than the next highest state agency or authority. We have exceeded the state's MWBE goals of 30% 4 years running and counting, and we are also meeting and exceeding our SDVOB goals. So our success has been pretty impressive. You will see on your screen we've spent in the last fiscal year approximately $1.2 billion in all 3 categories, which would be MW, DBE, and SDVOB businesses. 55% of that went specifically towards capital construction projects. So that's about $688 million. With respect to our spend, you wanted to share, the all-important numbers. Again, just distinguishing the state's fiscal year, which runs from April 1st through March 31st, and the federal fiscal year, which runs from October 1st through 9/30. So the numbers that you see here reflect the total fiscal year spend versus a semi-annual spend for the DBE firms. You will see that with respect to the MWBE spend, these are the figures that get reported to the state. And we look at the payments. So these numbers include approximately $450 million in MWBE spend, and that would include contracts that were awarded prior to this fiscal year. That's why you see a distinction between the payments and the awards. So the awards are the actual numbers for the fiscal year. The payments are the dollar value that went out. With respect to the DBE spend, the federal DBE spend, that is what is reported to the federal government, which counts awards and not payments. So they're looking at specifically how much money has been awarded to DBE firms, and you'll see that we spent about $62 million. We've awarded about $62 million in contracts within that time frame. We do anticipate an increase to that number as the design build projects start getting awarded, and we're starting to see a lot more contracting opportunities go out as far as DBE firms.
A point of clarification, the way the federal program, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program works, they don't count commitments that to utilize DBEs at the beginning of a design build, so it tends to lag. It tends to lag until later in these jobs, which is why you see it takes a while to manifest,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Wanted to share a little bit and add a little bit of color and digging a bit deeper on the largest awards for the last year. You'll see the 4 highest awards through 2024, which starts with Zion Contracting. It was founded in 2009. They're based out of Lynbrook, New York. Zion is an MBE and DBE certified firm. Empire Control Abatement, a WBE certified firm, started in 1988 with decades of experience in general contracting and environmental services. The Crossroads JV is based out of Plainville, New York. They operate in the construction and civil engineering space. They've been in operations for approximately 12 years. And lastly, Minotti Enterprises, which is an SDVOB and MBE certified firm. They're a construction safety firm which has been awarded a $7 million contract through the MTA. And also just pointing out that 2 of the 4 firms that you see on these screens are also graduates of the MTA Small Business Mentoring Program. That would be Zion Contracting and Minotti Enterprises. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Small Business Mentoring Program a little further down the line, but I think it's just very clear examples of some tremendous success that the MTA has been able to achieve through our Small Business Mentoring Program. The 2025-2029 capital plan includes very substantial commitments for engagement of hub-based businesses. We are projecting that we will be awarding approximately $7.5 billion over 5 years to hub businesses. We will also very aggressively seek to increase the number of DBE certified firms. We are aiming for another 300 to be added by the MTA to the DBE directory, and another 350 businesses to be added to our small business mentoring program. So to increase with the increased pace of work, to keep up with the increased pace of work that we're envisioning under our 25-29 plan, we obviously need to bring in new firms to come and do work with the MTA and provide them the support that they may need in order to be successful. So the DDCR team, in partnership and with the support of the C&D team, did a series of outreach events over the last year to come up with some strategies for scaling up hub participation, and that included looking at specific strategies, starting with simplifying our contract language. We've looked at such things as whether there are some opportunities for paperwork reduction, clarifying language within our contracts around insurance and timely payment requirements. We've also looked at utilizing our existing MTA tools, namely MTA University, to bring on-demand learning opportunities to the small business community, and again, to make sure that they are successful in partnership with the MTA. We also engaged in some substantial outreach, working with key stakeholders. We met with a series of prime contractors last winter. This spring, we've met with a number of A&E firms, again, bringing primes and subcontractors to the table so that we can talk about how we can be better business partners to these groups. We've also developed an outreach campaign targeting industries that are reported as high demand by our primes, which specifically include HVAC and MEP firms. We've also partnered on outreach events. Just this past week, we participated and were a lead planning partner for the Regional Infrastructure Opportunities Summit in Brooklyn, where we had over 400 attendees at this event. And later this summer, we are also headed to the Finger Lakes region to do some targeted outreach within Rochester and Syracuse and bringing some opportunities to those communities. We are also looking at pilots. Are there some pilot opportunities that the MTA can lead? And we've had some promising conversations with Empire State Development around creating a mentor-protege program, as well as exploring credit enhancements on MWBE goal attainment. And lastly, we're also very much engaged in strengthening our small business mentoring program. We have some substantial success, but obviously know that we can do more and we can do better. We're expanding our training, we're enhancing our curriculum, and we are tailoring our capacity building for program participants to make sure that they are successful. The Small Business Mentoring Program, which has been in effect at the MTA since 2010, really is designed to build capacity and grow our businesses, and therefore creating a larger pool of businesses that would be available to work with the MTA on our contracts. The program provides access to prime contracting opportunities, mentoring and business development support, classroom trainings, and working capital and surety bonding. So these services help bring new businesses to the MTA and allows them to graduate to larger prime contracting opportunities, as you saw in the earlier slide, where we've had some success. Currently, we have about 270 businesses participating in our small business mentoring program, but since the inception, we have facilitated over $23 million in small business loans to our program participants. We have graduated over 400 businesses in our Tier 1 and Tier 2 program, and we have awarded in contracts since 2010 alone over $732 million. So it is a very active and very popular program for the MTA, and being mindful that of the $732 million, these contracts were all under $5 million, which is the threshold for program participation. So it is a lot of contracting opportunity that is going out to businesses under this program. In 2024 alone, we awarded over $32 million in contracts. We had over $62 million in contract completion, and we are on track to exceed our goal of $74 million for 2025. So we're very aggressively being mindful of making sure that we are increasing and magnifying the opportunities. The congestion pricing relief pause did cause a slight dip for 2024, but again, now that we've got that behind us and that we're aggressively looking at and moving forward with our capital campaign, we're going to see those numbers go up. We've also really focused on, we are expanding educational accesses for small business. It's not just a question of making sure that we have the door open for our hub businesses, but that we are priming them and preparing them for success. So we are very much interested in building management skills as a critical part of the small business program, in addition to training sessions on the basics of working with the MTA. We recognize that the MTA may be a challenging organization to do business with, and we want to make sure that folks come through the door knowing what they have to address. We're also going to be, as I mentioned earlier, providing training opportunities on demand. So we have some training opportunities available to small businesses throughout our region. And then we're also going to be rolling out programs on marketing, financial management, and creating joint ventures, among other topics. Our small business mentoring program really will be expanding. We have a curriculum that is currently being magnified and developed and expanded. And we are looking at, currently we're in the process of recruitment for our small business mentoring firms. And our first trainings we're anticipating with this new and improved project to start launching in the fall. In addition to improving educational access, we're also finding new ways to make the projects work and making them even more beneficial for the MTA and our small business contractors. This includes identifying new services, again, as like plumbing and HVAC, as I referenced earlier, to help build up an even deeper bench of contractors whose skills, and creating more certainty for our small businesses for longer-term projects and awards. So following this success, we saw last year an increase, a threshold of the program. We're also going to continue to advocate for legislative action to allow even more work under this program. That concludes my report for hub participation in the capital program. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I mean, this is one of the crown jewels of what the MTA does in terms of economic development. The point is to be both in our interest to be growing the pool of companies who can compete for our work. And as one of the slides showed, we've had some success growing companies from very small startups to being able to compete for, prime or second level sub work on major projects. Especially in the design build world, the universe of contractors, sometimes contracts. We need to keep growing the universe of companies that will compete for our work so we can get better pricing and better work. So Lourdes is doing a great job, and we commend you. We appreciate all the good news you've just delivered. Anybody else? Okay. Jamie?
Chair, that takes us to our rolling stock report, which I'll turn over to Tim Mulligan.
So we wanted to take a few minutes today to talk about the Rolling Stock Program Office, which, for the new members, this was created by the chair last October, and just explain why we created the office and what we've been up to for the last 8 months, so you have a little bit of context. So, for the MTA, right, it's very clear that rolling stock is a very, very big deal in terms of its importance, in terms of its volume, right? The fleet vehicles are where the customers spend the majority of their time, in addition to the stations and the bus stops and we have a tremendous fleet size, right? We're talking about over 9,200 rail cars and nearly 6,000 buses. There is no system in North America that comes anywhere close to this scale. And that's a strength, and it's also a challenge when it comes to rolling stock acquisition in the market. The 25-29 plan is a generational investment in rolling stock, and that's because 40 years ago and a little bit more, when the capital plan structure first got started, one of the things they did with the money was buy a lot of cars. So those cars are coming up for replacement. And as cars hit, 40 years of useful life or beyond, it's time to replace them with new cars. The benefit to that to the customer isn't just about amenities and charging stations and different lighting. It's really about the reliability factor. And the chart on your right shows the contrast between our oldest cars in our fleets across the agencies and our more recent cars and what they achieve in terms of their MDBF. So newer cars are at least 6 times more reliable than the oldest elements of our fleets. So the money that even the public speaker spoke about in 25 to 29, $11 billion for rolling stock and a couple billion more for buses. That's going to be 1,500 more cars, 500 more rail cars, and 2,500 buses. This slide shows the history. America used to be a manufacturing center for rolling stock. And you'll see St. Louis Rail Company, Pullman, these historical names. This is no more. The industry has changed dramatically, and it's become globalized. And a lot of the people that we historically have bought cars from are no longer in business. And there's a lot of factors in that evolution, but this is one that I wanted to really call your attention to, right? America and North Americans' market share of the global rolling stock market has declined over time fairly dramatically. And that's because Asia, the Middle East, Northern Africa, Western Europe are more quickly expanding their rail and transit networks. So as the networks expand, they have a need for more cars to service that expansion, and the denominator grows very significantly. Our piece of the pie has stayed relatively constant. We've grown a little bit, we've had some added ridership, but because of that denominator effect, we've lost nearly 2/3 of the global market share. And that's been a long-term trend for the last several decades. More recently, there's been short-term disruptions in the market that were just as profound. That the consolidation and market share discussion has led to increased consolidation, not just among builders, but among sub-suppliers, right? We have tier 1 sub-suppliers that have bought up literally dozens of independent sub-suppliers, and so there's more pricing capacity with those sub-supplier systems. As we talked earlier in the day, cars are really the integrated collection of different subsystems that are built by different companies. Also, we've increased the Buy America requirements, so for federally funded projects, that has become an increasing challenge for builders and suppliers. We also had a period of very aggressive inflation coming out of COVID that created a lot of disruption and risk to the supply chain as well as to the builders, and led to some projects that were based on fixed pricing not making the margin they needed for companies, and that puts additional pressure for consolidation. COVID itself, of course, delayed the industry and delayed procurements. We've had instability, geopolitical instability in Eastern Europe that has disrupted the supply chain. And now we have, a lot of tariff policy changes and confusion, which is actually injecting risk into that market and has made it harder for the industry to support fixed pricing for long-term contracts. So the office was created, as I said, it was, to address these market factors, but also to address some internal factors. As you all know, C&D was created to consolidate the capital elements from all the agencies, but rolling stock was left with the operating agencies, and rightly so, because of the individual operating needs of the agency and the criticality of the service. But there's some benefits of that consolidation that really needed to come into this area as well, in the form of additional coordination and additional oversight to eliminate any duplication or redundancy that there was in fleet acquisition. And that's what led to the office creation. And our goals are very simple. We're there to enhance competition, to make the MTA a better owner, to help build better, more reliable rolling stock by forming long-term partnerships for reliabilities with the builders and the supply chain, and to drive down the total cost of ownership. How do we do that? So we're enhancing competition by doing a lot of market outreach and also streamlining the qualification process that it takes to do business. We're down to, 2 qualified transit car manufacturers, but we have 2 more in the wings that are getting qualified, so we can double the competition pool for that. Right? We have similar issues in the bus market where consolidation and Buy America has dwindled competition, so we're reaching out and bringing in additional people. We're also looking at decustomizing our specifications, right? We trying to shift more to performance-based standards. Everyone's comfortable working on what they know, and that leads to we're going to order the same thing as we had before. It's service proven, and there's some comfort in that conservative approach, but it also limits your ability to implement service proven innovative new technologies and to open up competition among the supply network. We're also upsizing our base orders. Because of the structure of the financial plan, we basically bought rolling stock in installments, a base, sometimes a quite small base, and a series of installments that spread out over different capital plans. We paid a premium for serializing our fleet acquisition, and we're not going to do that. We're going to upsize our base. It gets you more efficient pricing. It also gives the builders and the supply chain longer term stability so they can keep those engineers employed and they can keep the infrastructure we need to support these vehicles once they arrive on the property. And I talked about technology. We're being very specific about bringing in technology, but also looking at existing manufacturing platforms and whether or not we can make those work for operational needs with minimal amount of changes. And then, of course, leveraging the scale to make New York State a leader, not just in acquisition and purchaser of rail cars and buses, but also in the manufacturing by bringing in additional manufacturers into New York State to open, retool plants and the like. And we do this in part by becoming a better owner. We did a top to bottom revamping and modernization of our terms and conditions as part of the commuter rail contract that we talked about earlier today in finance. And we made, scores of changes to that contract. We historically probably over-relied on our size and scale and said it was our way or the highway. And now, because we're a smaller share of the global pie, we have to really look at those terms from both sides and do what C&D did, which is allocate the risk more efficiently. The party that bears the risk, whether it's the owner or whether it's the builder, is in the best position to manage the risk. If neither party can control the risk, maybe that risk needs to be shared or taken out of the equation so that if you leave risk in a project for a builder, they will charge you for that risk and they will charge you the worst case scenario. So you may end up overpaying. We also adjusted our milestone payment schedules so that we can give money at the same, align the pace of our payments with the cost of expenditures that are invested in the project. So when people are buying materials, our money should be there to support those invoices when those orders are made, not requiring our builders or the supply chain to effectively finance the project and be our bankers and charge us a premium for that. And then, of course, we injected a more expedited and better resolution process. Other people, Lourdes and others, have alluded to we can be a difficult place to do business with. And one of the things is getting faster decisions and clear leadership when there are issues that arise. And then, focusing on building a better product. I talked about performance-based spec instead of over-standardization, but also focusing on serviceability and life cycle support after the vehicles are purchased. And that includes, looking at the efficiency of the vehicle and the energy or fuel it takes to operate the vehicle and getting into things like, vehicle weight and the cost of operating the vehicle with the energy it takes to move it through its very heavy duty cycle. And finally, taken together, these can bring down the total cost of ownership of our rolling stock. And it may surprise some people, but we spend more after the cars are bought, after the buses are bought, with maintenance, inspection, and the overhaul process, as well as the energy costs for operation. That is a bigger portion of the overall expense, which is several $billion a year for the MTA. And so we need to be more defined and analytical about how we judge those trade-offs between acquisition savings for a smaller purchase price and higher maintenance costs later, or the reverse. And that requires us to build out and practice the TCO model, which is what we're doing. Any questions?
I just want to, because we have some folks who are new working with us on this, on this stuff and in general. Let me just put an extra emphasis on what Tim said about becoming a better owner. This is one of the ways that C&D, I got to start it, Jamie's carried it forward very effectively, is actually managing costs, which is looking at old government contracts, which unreasonably allocate risk to the contractor. Contractor, if we give you an outage and we don't show up and our personnel doesn't show up and we cancel the outage at the last minute, that's your problem. That's literally what our contracts used to say. And we've changed that. The contractor, if you tell him that, put that kind of risk on him or her, is going to charge you a huge premium. And Sammy, you run a contracting business, you know this. So we've tried to reallocate the way that the contracts are written so that, as Tim said, the risk sits with the party in the best position to control it, rather than having people charge us a premium because we're too lazy or unaccountable to manage our own performance under the contract. And there are a lot of other ways, limiting customization, and being more flexible about what kinds of componentry we ask for, not telling the contractor you have to use this particular subcomponent because that's the one we're used to. Giving them a performance spec and letting him or her choose which component manufacturer or supplier to go with so they can get some competition going as they try to put together the package that ends up being what they sell us. This is really, really important stuff. And for generations, we've been overpaying because, frankly, we may be a little arrogant, right? We were the big dog. We said, this is the way it's going to be. You take the risk. These are the components we want. And they'll sell it to you, or at least they used to. But they're going to charge you a huge premium. We have to get the pricing down. And this is one of the ways that we're doing it. So forgive the interruption, but I just wanted to put extra emphasis on it. Midori.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. I'm really excited about this initiative because it has been kind of a puzzle and a nugget that we've had to figure out at the MTA. And now that we have such a consolidated, I think it's $11 billion in rolling stock and fleet in the next capital plan, to have kind of one strategic management of the procurement, design, and then delivery process is exciting. So I'm sure I'll have a ton of questions because this is why I showed up to Capitol today, because of these presentations. Curious, like, given where you are in your setting up the rolling stock office, doing all of these kind of strategic changes, the total cost of ownership is really interesting to me, because I do think we would invest so much on the capital side, but never have like a full life cycle analysis on the actually asset maintenance side and the overhaul side. So thank you for bringing that up. Curious about, kind of based on the new things that you would like to put in, when is the first, when are you going to start procurements for rolling stock? Because the delivery timeline is, and I'm sure you want to get it a little staggered, so just wanted to check in on the 25 to 29 rolling stock budget. When are you going to start doing procurements for those?
So yeah, one of the biggest upcoming procurements is A-Division cars for the subway system. So there's 1,140 A-Division cars that will replace the 62s and 62As. So that's the 262 procurement. And we'll have that, we'll be initiating that procurement hopefully by the end of the year.
Anybody else?
And we have bus options we're going to be exercising this week.
Okay. Other comments, questions? Okay, we're going to get Mr. Leathers and Mr. Valenti some good cars to run, so that's the bottom line. Anybody what's next? Sue. Sue is going to actually, we're going to hear now from the individual agencies about their role in the car procurements. Sue Coe.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sue Cole. I'm the Vice President and Chief Mechanical Officer of Car Equipment at New York City Transit. Today I'll be giving an update to the R211 program. Since our last update, Option 2 has been exercised on January 31st of this year, making the total number of cars at 1610 with a budget of $5.06 billion. This slide shows the number of cars delivered as of June 17th. As of today, another 5 R211A has been delivered, making that number 535. Now, the challenges experienced with early deliveries early on the project has been overcome. We are now receiving cars at an increased pace and consistent with the contract terms, which is an average of 30 cars a month. Fleet performance. As you can see from the chart, the R211 is performing 5 times better than the R46 and more than 1.5 times higher than the contractual requirements of 150,000. This is due to the hard work between the R211 project team and Kawasaki. Any issues that arises, Kawasaki has acknowledged and addressed. An example was some door issues with workmanship items that has been corrected and cut into production. They continue to address open items and any new issues that come up. Thank you. This concludes my presentation.
This is, folks, this is the, as they say, the money shot, right? This is why we have to buy new cars, because the old ones are 48,000 MDBF. That's 48,000 miles between breakdown. And the new ones that we're getting, the R211s, are 244. So that translates into the risk of a couple thousand people getting stuck on a subway that have to be discharged, taken out of service, and so on and so on. 5 plus times as likely to incur that kind of an in-service mechanical failure. Andrew.
Has any particular portion of congestion pricing monies been relegated to rolling stock?
It has. I'm looking at Steve Cazal. The congestion relief funding towards rolling stock. I want to get it accurate. It has, and we'll get the details to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're from Metro North now. Mr. Reynolds.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Reynolds. I'm the Senior Director for Rolling Stock Delivery and Integration at Metro North. I will be providing a status update on the Metro North dual mode program. I'm representing this slide mainly to highlight, in addition to the replacement of the aging P32s, the significant and positive impact that these locomotives would have on our environment, focusing on 2 main facts. The use of clean diesel Tier 4 engines will provide a reduction of harmful pollutions by 86%, and secondly, the reduction of carbon emission by 25,000 tons yearly, all while delivering more reliable service to our customers. This slide shows a timeline on how did we get here and what are the upcoming steps for the summer. We plan on completing the qualification testing this month and project start of revenue service in July. We have received the first of the production locomotives and started commissioning and dynamic testing. So we may conditionally accept these locomotives this summer as well. Furthermore, additional locomotives are scheduled for delivery this summer. On the project status, this program is on budget and is on schedule. It is an FTA-funded program and as such is fully in compliance with the biomarker requirements. The locomotives are being built in the United States, more specifically in California, Sacramento. The project is progressing on schedule, and since our last report, Metro North has exercised an option for 13 additional locomotives, battery plus AC, in March of this year, which has increased our budget to $738 million and extended the complete delivery of the locomotives to the second quarter of 2030. Currently, Metro North total order is for 40 dual-mode locomotives. Under this contract, 19 additional options are available to Metro North. And in conclusion, I would like to point out that due to the positive project progress, Long Island Railroad and Connecticut DOT have also exercised options. This concludes my presentation, if there are any questions.
Okay. And that clean diesel, that, that is sort of different than
What we presently
diesel of
use,
the past.
correct.
Our image of diesel is it's highly polluting. But this is a very different order of magnitude. Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody? Okay. I'm sorry. Hear from the IEC. Thanks.
Thank you and good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Calvin Gordon, Deputy Program Director of the IEC, and I will be reporting on the IEC's review of the MTA's rolling stock program, which includes the acquisition of new rail cars and buses. Now, the IEC provides detailed monitoring on the MTA and New York City Transit bus program and select rail car projects. The latest quarterly traffic light report, TLR, incorporates all rolling stock projects. Today, the IEC is reporting on 4 vehicle procurement programs, which begin on page 25 of your committee book. On the R211 subway program, the IEC concurs with the current budget and EAC as reported by New York City Transit. The IEC is pleased to confirm that the rate of production for subway cars under this contract has improved from 22 cars per month to 30 cars per month on average. The IEC has endorsed initiatives implemented to increase the production rate while ensuring that fleet performance meets requirements. Since the last CPC report, the required conditional acceptance date for the R211A base order has shifted from May to June 2025 due to necessary modifications to the pilot cars. The IEC concurs with NYCT's reporting and conditional acceptance rates of the R211 cars. In terms of potential risk, we see common door system defects could potentially develop into rework and in-service reliability problems. The IEC acknowledges that the project team has adopted recommendations to improve product quality and workmanship of the cars. Moving on to Metro North's SC42 dual-mode locomotive program, this project remains on schedule with acceptance of all clean diesel dual-mode locomotives forecast for April 2027. Since our last report, MTA exercised the option for the purchase of 13 battery plus AC locomotives for the Penn Station Access Program. Therefore, the project budget and EAC, as stated by the agency, has been increased. Long Island Railroad received approval to purchase up to 44 alternative configuration dual-load locomotives for $787 million in March, and LIR has executed an option for 22 of those. In the opinion of the IEC, we find 2 potential concerns to the program. Software issues identified during testing to fine-tune operations on Metro North's property could impact the conditional acceptance of the first 2 clean diesel dual-mode locomotives. Secondly, the performance in maintaining the longevity of battery life for the battery electric locomotive could be challenging. In order to address these concerns, the project management team has ensured software upgrades are done in a timely manner. Additionally, the team is working on different options to maximize battery efficiency. The IEC concurs that the project is on schedule, and conditional acceptance for the first 2 clean diesel locomotives will be completed in July of this year. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to finish our remarks on the M9 program. All 202 cars were delivered, and the substantial completion was achieved in November 2024, and the project was within budget. That concludes our report on the rail car portion.
Okay, any questions? I mean, the battery challenges are something that's not unique to this procurement. We're Danny's about to talk a little bit about
Absolutely.
where we are with electric buses, and they're facing some of the same challenges. It's something the industry is going to have to wrestle with. Anybody else on any of this? Okay. I think we're going to hear from Danny Cardozo about the bus rolling stock. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Daniel Cardoza. I'm the Vice President, Chief Maintenance Officer for New York City Transit Department of Buses and MTA Bus Company, and I will take you through the various bus projects. The 20 to 24 capital program consists of 2,161 buses. We are pleased to report that 90% have either been delivered or are in production. 10%, that is 217 buses, are future orders to be purchased. We are currently preparing for production on 4 contracts for the purchase of express buses, articulated clean diesels and electrics, and standard electrics. The pilot buses are in various stages in their in-service evaluation. We will apply lessons learned to the production orders. The projects are all on time and on budget. Our future projects include a total of 217 buses from the 20 to 24 capital program and 2,504 buses in the 25 to 29 program. We plan to purchase coaches, standards, and articulated buses in a variety of propulsion systems for both New York City Transit and MTA Bus Company. As always, we are working closely with procurement to increase competition in the bus market. Our newest hybrid and clean diesel buses are operating consistently and have shown an overall increase in lifetime MDBF. We continue to work with our bus manufacturers on our electric fleet that is experiencing some infancy performance issues, resulting in a low MDBF and bus availability. And most of the issues are due to batteries and software. And the MDBF for our coaches has slightly decreased by 2% from last year due to technical issues that are being addressed by the bus manufacturer. Further, the buses we are purchasing in these capital plans will be replacing buses that are 12 years old or older that are underperforming, as shown on the graphs. Overall, procuring new buses is essential to our reliability, as our new fleets are 2 to 3 times more reliable. We continue to make progress on our commitment to reduce greenhouse gases and emissions. The capital program includes the purchase of 368 compressed natural gas buses, of which 110 are in the procurement stage. Earlier this year, we awarded a contract for 2 hydrogen buses to test and evaluate a new zero emissions type of vehicle. This was made possible from a grant award from NYSERDA. In the past year, we have received delivery of 60 battery electric buses that are operating throughout New York City. In addition, we are currently testing 5 new battery electric buses that have been delivered and are assigned to Staten Island. Last year, we awarded contracts to New Flyer for the purchase of 470 battery electric buses. Deliveries will begin the 4th quarter of this year. And lastly, we're in the initial stages of procuring 5 battery electric coach buses to test and evaluate the new bus model. A bus fleet is 100% ADA accessible, which is vital to passengers using mobility aids. The newest buses will be equipped with even more flip-up seats on the lower deck than last reported. This will facilitate access for customers using walkers, strollers, or other devices. The wider ramps that allow easier access for larger wheelchairs or scooters is now standard on all new bus orders. And, focusing on the safety of our bus operators, all buses are being delivered with the full driver enclosure, which provides an unobstructed view of the windshield and entryway. Thank you. That concludes our report. The IEC will now present.
IEC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the MTA new bus program, 8 contracts that were reported last year by the IEC have been completed. 7 contracts are active, and deliveries from Prevost began in May. They remain on budget and on schedule. Following the implementation of congestion pricing, 2 additional procurements were added in November 2024 to bring the total for battery electric buses from New Flyer to 470. The IEC finds the following 2 concerns to the program. The electric buses received to date have experienced reliability and performance issues, and delays in accepting these buses into service may require the retention of older buses in service longer than would otherwise occur, with the potential increase to maintenance costs. We'd like to note that DOB is addressing these concerns in 2 ways. MTA will not accept buses until all technical and quality issues are resolved and meet contract requirements. Secondly, DOB is proactively and systematically implementing a program to extend the service life of aging vehicles until the replacement vehicles are available. IEC concurs with these actions. Mr. Chairman, traffic light report.
I just want to, any questions about any of that? I think the message is clear that we got to figure this. We have a very big investment and commitment to zero emissions buses, which is important for the region, and it's a statewide commitment. But we got to have buses that aren't going to break down. So we got to figure this out through the testing and commissioning process. As the IEC has highlighted it, I think Danny talked about it as well. Andrew.
If there's a delay in receiving the new buses and we have to continue to use the old buses as was just illustrated, will the old buses be fitted with the partitions so the drivers are protected?
I would just say this, Andrew. All of our, as you say, older buses have been retrofitted with partitions. What we're getting in the newer buses is a full-on cockpit,
Right.
which is yet another level of protection,
yeah.
and encasement. So I think that's the answer is all of the buses have a separation and a partition. The newer buses have yet a better.
Really effective ones, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we want our drivers to be safe.
That's
Danny,
exactly
anything?
right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. All buses have partitions and they have a slider, but the brand-new buses have the full enclosure.
Yeah. But we, Blanca Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, what happens with the older buses? Like, where do they go? What do? We do just in
Living,
general.
assisted living. No, they. Danny. Dan-
So when we're totally finished with them, we do bring them to our scrap yard. We'll remove any parts that we could reuse in the system, and then we have a vendor take them away. They're spent when we're done with them. We get every little bit out of them.
There's.
Well, I'm curious, what are some of the issues that are associated with these new buses? Is it isolated to the batteries?
We've had problems in the battery tubs. We've had batteries replaced, software issues, a lot of road calls on the road for electrical components. Remember, they're all electrified now, so the air brake systems work off an electric compressor. The electric compressors are failing on the road. So it's a lot of electric bus type of issues.
I mean, this is the whole nation is moving in this direction, and it's created definitely a lot of pressure on the industry. So we're operating in a very dynamic environment where the technology and the manufacturing quality is going 100 miles an hour, where the manufacturing capacity and the number of manufacturers is of the industry isn't where it needs to be. But we're working with some known New York State manufacturers, so we're hoping they can sort this out. But in the meantime, we have to make sure that our buses, we're not taking buses that are going to break down 5 times as frequently as the rest of the fleet, right? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, the IEC again. I'm sorry? Yeah. IEC again, yeah.
We're going to shift briefly to the first quarter 2025 traffic light report, which is found on page 42 of your committee book. There you can see this quarter, there's 254 projects were reviewed for cost and schedule adherence, and 36 projects triggered a variance. The accompanying project variance reports have brief explanations prepared by C&D summarizing the issues encountered this quarter and the actions taken to mitigate. The IC would like to highlight a change to the TLR starting this quarter. 2 new traffic light colors, blue and orange, have been introduced to give more context and nuance to the capital project progress. A blue indicator represents a sound business decision implemented by C&D to be able to achieve its capital program goals with more flexibility. An orange indicator identifies track projects where the track team did not receive a planned GO, but is able to pivot and complete other high-priority track work elsewhere, which helps progress the MTA system-wide track program overall. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the IC update on the MTA's rolling stock program and TLR.
Is this making sense? This is meant to be informative to the board and the public. Are these adjustments that Calvin's described making sense? Yes? Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. There is a set of procurements, and Ian Goldrich has returned from a jaunt abroad to make them. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This month I'm presenting 5 procurement actions totaling $264.2 million. The first item in the amount of $249 million is a new award to Skanska Koch of a publicly advertised and competitively solicited contract for design build services to install the cable dehumidification system on 4 main cables of the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. The work will prevent corrosion and preserve the current strength of the bridge cables. The project also includes installation of an acoustic monitoring system that will monitor the conditions within the cables. Additionally, the contract includes maintenance of both the cable dehumidification and the acoustic monitoring systems for 5 years after commissioning. The next item is for ratification of a modification to a contract with Sistra in the amount of $2.2 million to provide additional engineering support services in support of the installation of a communication-based train control signaling system on New York City Transit's Queens Boulevard West Line. The third item is for ratification of a modification to a contract with NIAC in the amount of $8.6 million to provide continuing project management services for 3 ongoing projects on the 42nd Street corridor. And the last 2 items are ratification of modifications to contracts, one to Siemens in the amount of $3.2 million to update car-borne controller software for R179 subway cars, and the other to Hitachi in the amount of $1.35 million to update car-borne controller software for R211 subway cars. These updates will improve system performance and reliability. These items are described in detail in the staff summaries contained in your committee books. I hereby submit them for your consideration and vote.
Any questions? Okay, I note that there is one recusal on the Verrazano procurement for the dehumidification by Mr. Herbst. Otherwise, you'll move it. Mr. Chu, thank you. Ms. Lopez for the second. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The recusal is noted for Mr. Herbst on the Verrazano. Otherwise, the items carry. I think that is our agenda for today. Any other business anyone wishes to discuss? Hearing none, I'll have a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Ms. Mahaltzis. Thank you, Mr. Herbst, for the second. We are in adjournment.